Hello, and welcome to today's explainer session. We're going to break down a topic that people usually avoid at the family dinner table, but it's absolutely crucial in real life. We're talking about Western civil inheritance law in Indonesia. Based on the academic texts and legal syllabuses guiding us today, inheritance is known to be a highly sensitive issue that often triggers emotional conflicts. So let's unpack these rules together so we can understand how this law actually works as a tool to resolve family disputes.
Here is our roadmap for today, starting with the history of civil inheritance law, moving to its definition, then the elements and principles, and finally, the Western heir groups. Part 1. The history of civil inheritance law. Let's open up a sort of legal time capsule. This journey began back in the 1800s when the Dutch brought over the Burgerlijk Wetboek, or BW. Then, during the colonial era, a principle of concordance was enforced through Article 131 of the Indische Staatsregeling. But what's really fascinating is that when Indonesia gained independence in 1945, this colonial law wasn't just tossed out. Our 1945 Constitution actively protected it through transitional provisions, which were then reinforced by Presidential Regulation No. 2 of 1945. This ensured the BW remained fully active. Now, why keep it? Well, the main reason was highly tactical, to avoid a legal vacuum. Just imagine the absolute chaos in a brand new country if there were suddenly zero rules regarding the transfer of wealth when someone passes away. It's unthinkable, right? This step was taken purely to maintain stability and order in society. Moving on to Part 2, searching for the definition of inheritance law. You might be wondering, so what is the official definition of inheritance law? Well, believe it or not, if you flip through the entire massive Burgerlijk Wetboek, you won't find a single article that explicitly gives a complete definition. Pretty wild, right? The only tiny clue the BBW gives us is in Article 830, which simply states, inheritance only occurs due to death. Obviously, that is nowhere near enough to explain the complexity of it all. Because of that, we literally have to borrow the lenses of prominent legal scholars to piece the true definition together. Our first expert, A. Pitlow, gives us a major clue. He defines it as the set of rules governing wealth due to someone's death. His focus is squarely on the transfer of wealth left by the deceased and all the legal consequences of that transfer, for the heirs or even for third parties. Meanwhile, our legendary Indonesian legal expert, Professor Supomo, broadens this view amazingly. He doesn't just see it as an event triggered by someone dying, but rather as a cross-generational transfer process. According to him, this process actually starts while the parents are still alive. Death is just the climax, the final point that makes the transfer absolute. Now we're at Part 3, elements and principles of inheritance. If we distill all those theories down, inheritance law can be simplified into 3 absolutely mandatory elements. It's very logical. First, there must be a person who has passed away. Second, there has to be actual wealth left behind. And third, there must be living heirs ready to receive it. Makes sense, doesn't it? Without even one of these, the inheritance process simply cannot happen legally. What makes the legal landscape in Indonesia so unique is that we have 2 justice systems running side by side. On one hand, you have Western civil inheritance law, rooted in European civil tradition, focusing heavily on wealth transfer and heir groups. On the other hand, we have Islamic inheritance law, sourced from the Al-Quran and the compilation of Islamic law, which uses specific calculations, called ashabul furuts, to ensure absolute justice and individual rights. When we look at the academic syllabus from the Islamic University of Bandung, it becomes crystal clear why studying this matters so much. Inheritance isn't just about crunching numbers on paper. It's an incredibly sensitive family conversation that can easily blow up into conflict. That's exactly why mastering these complex rules is an absolute must-have skill for future conflict resolvers. Let's head into our final section, Western heir groups. The BW system uses a pretty rigid and prioritized 4-group system. The rule of thumb is this: a higher group automatically and completely blocks the rights of the lower groups. Top priority goes to Group I, the surviving spouse and their children. If Group I is empty, then the door opens for Group 2, which includes parents and siblings. It flows down from there to Group 3 for ascendants, and finally Group 4 for collateral blood relatives. It's like a super strict waiting line. But wait, there's one incredible safety net in this system called the legitimate portee. Basically, the law doesn't let you just give all your wealth away to an outsider in a will and completely abandon your core family. The legitimate portee is an absolute guaranteed portion of the estate for specific heirs locked in by law that absolutely cannot be erased by any will. But of course, as we consider the academic study plan, real-world application often completely messes up that neat little group system. Just imagine the mathematical headache when we have to factor special cases into the equation. For instance, acknowledged out-of-wedlock children, or an heir who died early and needs to be replaced. Not to mention wills, grants, or prenuptial agreements. Wow, those can completely flip the standard distribution upside down.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with a thought inspired by the foreword of our reference book. Seeing how easily wealth distribution can ignite emotional rifts, do you think mastering this rigid colonial inheritance law might actually be the secret key to keeping the peace in modern Indonesian families? Because at the end of the day, the law exists to provide certainty and stop fights, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me to unpack this heavy but fascinating topic. I hope today's explainer gave you some great new insights, and I'll catch you in our next session.